and welcome to Ike Education's Becoming President program. I'm Helen, and I'm your Ike educator for the Eisenhower Foundation here in Abilene, Kansas. We work closely with the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum, and we get to teach kids like you all about the life and times of Dwight D. Eisenhower. As a nation, we experienced the inauguration of a new president on January 20th, 2021. Joe Biden was sworn into office as President of the United States, and Kamala Harris became the first woman, first African American, and first Asian American to be sworn in as Vice President. So, who can be president? Today, we're going to learn about becoming president. We have two goals we are aiming for in this program. We want you to have a clear understanding of who qualifies to be president of the United States. And could you be president one of these days? Let's find out. The Constitution of the United States was written by a group of men who were building a new government after the Revolutionary War. The colonies had revolted against England, who was ruled by a king. At first, the men wanted George Washington to be king of the United States. When he said no, they proceeded to explain in Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, just who could be the leader of our country, and it would be the president. Let's look at Section 1. Section 1. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of the Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years and been 14 years as a resident within the United States. What? Let's review what it says. There are 3 qualifications that someone needs to meet before running for president of the United States. Let's look at that first part of Section 1. No person except a natural born citizen. So we need to be a natural born citizen. You can't be a citizen of another country and then become a citizen of the United States and qualify to run for president of the United States. So you need to be a natural born citizen. Now, what's another one? How old do you need to be to run for president? You need to be at least 35 years old. And then there's one more qualification. How many years do you need to live in the United States? At least 14. You are right. All right. So we know what it says, but what does it not say? It actually says very little. We need to go back in time to the year 1787. Women had no rights outside of her home and few inside of her home. So the assumption is that men should be president. It wasn't until the 19th Amendment that was passed in 1920, which was 102 years ago, that made it legal for women to even vote on the national level for president. So it doesn't say what gender you need to be for president. Does it say anything about what religion you should follow, or if you need to follow one? No. Or what ethnic group or education level you have, if you were raised poor or wealthy, if you're physically fit or not so fit? No. So anyone who meets those 3 qualifications stated in the Constitution could run for president. However, when looking through our historical binoculars back to the ratification of the Constitution in 1787, the qualifications were definitely steered toward a white, wealthy male. But good thing, the Constitution is a living document. What does that mean? A living document. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Well, it means that it can be changed. It was written with the intention that it would be changed with future generations based on the times. Now, it's a bit of a process to change, but amendments can be added to change how the Constitution reads. So, as I said earlier, The 19th Amendment was added in 1920, and that amendment allowed women the right to vote on a national level. Before that, the Constitution didn't allow women the right to vote, but they made an amendment and voted on it, which changed the Constitution, which makes it a living document. So cool. Does anyone know how many amendments have been added to the Constitution? That's a bit of a tricky one. There has been 27 amendments added to the US Constitution. So, we're going to take a little quiz. Let's look at some of the people who might want to run for president of the United States. And we're going to see if they qualify. What can we need to look for what qualifications? How old do they need to be? At least 35. They need to be a naturalized citizen, so born in the United States. And they need to have lived in the US for at least 14 years. All right, let's go. Let's look at Beyonce Knowles together. She was born on September 4th, 1981. She born in, is she 35 years old or older? She sure is. She was born in Houston, Texas, which makes her a natural citizen. And she has lived in the US longer than 14 years. Her profession, she's an entertainer. Does she qualify to become president? She sure does, but she would have to run and get the people's votes to win. So she definitely qualifies to run for president. Okay, let's take a look at Patrick Mahomes. He is the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. Go Chiefs. He was born on what day? September 17th, 1995. He was born on Constitution Day. How cool is that? Well, he was born in Tyler, Texas, and he has definitely lived in the US longer than 14 years. He's a professional football player and was just named like one of the best quarterbacks. So, is he able to run for president? Once you've identified if he can or cannot, tell me why. Right, he can't. What disqualifies him? He's not old enough. 1995, he still has a few more years. He was born in the United States, so he's naturalized, and he's lived in the US longer than 14 years. So once he reaches 35, he could run for president. But thank goodness he gets to keep being the quarterback for the Chiefs. All right, let's look at Emma Watson. She was born April 15th, 1990. Her birthplace was Paris, France, and she is a British citizen. Her occupation is an actress. Does Emma Watson qualify to run for president of the United States? No, she sure doesn't. She has 2 strikes against her. She's not 35 and she's not a US citizen. Geraldine Ferrero was born August 26, 1935 in Newboro, New York, and lived in the US for 14 consecutive years. Could she run for president? She met all the requirements and ran in 1984 as Walter Mondale's vice president. They did not win. They lost to Ronald Reagan and George H. Bush. Here's our last one. George W. Bush is a grandpa and an avid golfer and quite the accomplished painter. He was born July 4th, 1946 in New Haven, Connecticut. He has lived in the US for more than 14 consecutive years. Can this grandpa run for president? Does he meet the 3 qualifications? Former president and Grandpa George met all the requirements, but he has already served 2 terms as president, so he can't be president again. That was a tricky one. So, do you know someone who wants to be president? Maybe you would like to run for office. Let's go through the requirements and see if you are eligible. Have your eligibility paper out and fill it in as we go. If you don't have a paper, don't worry about it. You can go along and follow along with us on the screen. First things first, were you born in the United States? Yes or no? Many people feel that this is the most important qualification. This might be a good time to pause and have a little discussion over, is it the most important qualification to have to run for president? Are you at least 35 years old? Answer on your worksheet. Why do you think age matters to be president? Our youngest president sworn in was John Kennedy at age 43. And our oldest president to be sworn in is our current president, Joe Biden, at 78. Our 2020 election had some of the oldest candidates running, with the former President Trump at age 74 and Joe Biden at age 78. President Biden is currently 79. Most of you are not 35 yet, so let's figure out how many years it will be until you turn 35. For those of you who are 10, your equation is on the left in blue, and my 11-year-olds, you're on the right in red. I'm going to give you a minute to complete your equation on your worksheet. When you have it filled out, please share with the kiddos around you to make sure that y'all are having a similar answer. So, my 10-year-olds, if you are 10, you have the 35 there, and you're going to put your current age. Your current age is 10. So the equation is 35 minus 10. It will be 25 years before you turn 35. My 11-year-olds, in red, we're going to subtract 11 from 35, and it will be 24 years before you turn 35. So what year will you turn 35? If you're not 35, how many years will it be before you turn 35? Feel free to work ahead on your worksheet or follow along with me. For those of you who are 10, I'm going to be working through your equation on the left. The first line wants you to fill in the amount of years it will be before you're 35. We just calculated this on the previous page. So it will be 25 years before you turn 35. The next line has you put in the current year. So the current year is 2022. All right, now you need to add these two numbers. For those of you that are 10, you will be 35 in what year? If you got 2047, you are absolutely correct. All right, my 11-year-olds, let's go through what you have. Years before you turn 35 will be 24 years. The current year is the same, 2022. You will add those together, and you will be 35 in 2046. All right. Election day. This is interesting. Election day is always the Tuesday next after the first Monday in the month of November. The 2020 election day was November 3rd. What year will our next presidential election be? Yep, you got it. Our next election year will be 2024. Look at the timeline and figure out when you would be eligible to throw your campaign hat in the political ring. Allow yourself to understand that just because you're 35 doesn't mean there's going to be an election year when you turn 35. So what election year will you be able to run for president? You got it. Both my 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds, it's going to be 2048. So on your paper, I will be eligible to run for president in 2048. Be sure to have your campaign speech ready to let your voters know who you are and what you stand for. Be sure to tell your voters how you would govern our great country. Just because you meet the 3 qualifications does not mean you'll be president. You have to get the American people to vote for you. Both Republicans and Democratic parties wanted Eisenhower to be their candidate. Everybody loved Eisenhower, and they used the name Ike as his nickname. Eisenhower ran as a Republican and won in 1952 election. Once a candidate wins, they don't become president right away. He was sworn in on January 20th, 1953 as our 34th president of the United States. This next slide is Ike's famous campaign commercial with a fun jingle that goes along with it.
I for president, I for president, I for president, I for president. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We don't want John or Dean or Harry. Let's do that big job right. Just get in step with the guy that's left. Get in step with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We get where we are going. Travel day and night for president. Adelaide go the other way. We'll all go with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We'll take Ike to Washington.
Now is the time for all good Americans to come to the aid of their country.
That commercial always puts a little smile on my face. I want to think about how this fun commercial helped Eisenhower get elected. It was one of the very first political commercials out there because prior to this election, the common family didn't have television in their house. So this was a really big deal. It was fun. It had a great slogan, I like Ike, and people remembered it. And it definitely helped get his message out and people to vote for him. Dwight D. Eisenhower took the oath of office on January 20th, 1953, at the age of 67. He placed his left hand on two Bibles and raised his right hand while reciting the presidential oath. All presidents must take this oath. Let's watch this.
Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear. I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States, and will, to the best of your ability, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help you God. So help me God.
I just love watching that 1953 primary source video over Eisenhower's swearing in. It's just very powerful. So there has been 46 presidencies up to today. Some, like Dwight D. Eisenhower, were extremely popular and have very high approval ratings. Others were less popular and won by small numbers. The Constitution supports the executive branch and states the role that person should play as leader of our great country. Now I'm going to ask you to stand and we're going to recite the presidential oath as Eisenhower did in the primary source that we just watched. I want you to think about the words being said as you say them. Now, real quickly, I want you to look at that first line and where it says I, your name, that means your first and last name. So everybody stand up, right hand in the air, and repeat after me. I, Helen Rose, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Awesome job. Go ahead, have a seat. So the president, they are swearing on a religious book. It could be a law book if they so choose, but they are swearing that they will do whatever it takes to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So you as citizens are asked to do these to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. What do you think that means? This would be a good time to pause and have a class discussion to go in a little bit deeper. But as we continue, I want you to think, how can you, as an elementary student or a middle school or high school student, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution? Pretty deep thoughts. Again, good discussion questions. Remember, to qualify to be president, you have to be a natural born citizen, be at least 35 years old, and have lived in the United States for 14 consecutive years leading up to the presidency. Thanks for watching Becoming President today with me. I hope you have a better understanding of who can run for president of the United States, and maybe one day you might be interested in becoming president.